Okay, Will.
Good morning. The Finance Committee is called to order at 10:35. Today is June 7th. All members are present, that being Alderwoman Finlayson to my right and Alderwoman O'Neill to my left. At this time, I will ask for, I believe, an amendment to the agenda before we approve it.
Madam Chair, it's on the agenda that I'm looking at, SA 3023. Is that the one?
SA 30-23 is what I'm looking at.
It's on the agenda.
Oh, it is? Okay, I saw it penciled in here.
Do we still have to add it? It wasn't on the original agenda? Then I will move that we add SA 3023 to the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. At this time, I'll accept a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 4th, 2023.
Move approval of the minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have legislation today, and got a handful, and I will.
I think the essay is first on the agenda.
Okay. All right. We're gonna.
Can you?
Yeah, we'll go with that. I have the hard copy in front of me. Wait, just, is this something you need to do right now? Thank you so much. All right. Okay, we have an essay in front of us, which is essay 30-23. It came to us last night, so forgive us for being, I haven't had the time to talk to Kirsten at the visitor center, or I haven't talked to anyone at the Anne Arundel County Arts Council. Was this mentioned in the monthly, in that quarterly?
I think Ms. Pettit may be able to speak to it.
Is anyone, oh, hi, Kate. Yeah, thank you for being here. Yeah, I mean, the first question I had in looking at it last night was, what were we referring to as the Arts and Performing Center? Is that in addition to Maryland Hall? Okay, because I thought it might have been the other thing.
So, maybe I misunderstood your question, Ben. Good morning, Kate Pettit, Chief of Staff to Mayor Buckley. This is referring to the, I believe it's a proposal that's been, long on the table for a performing arts conference centre located in there's some vacant parcel of land at Park Place that's long been slated for that venue. The organisation that was originally trying to get that proposal planned out in detail and on the books was not successful, not able to get there within their funding timeframe. So, and many stakeholders have been engaged in conversations late last year and early this year, and the Anne Arundel Visitors Bureau and the Arts, the Arts Council of Anne Arundel County also have come in to lead a new kind of look at this project. And they've been negotiating with all of the stakeholders, including Maryland Hall, to come up with an arrangement that will work. But the first step after those initial talks is a feasibility study. The feasibility study will be done in partnership with the Maryland Stadium Authority. It'll be solely funded, it'll be funded by the Visitors Centre and the Arts Council, but we will be the funding mechanism because the Stadium Authority has to contract with a local government agency. So we're going to be a pass-through agency for that funding. So we've had a memorandum of understanding agreed last week that we would act in that role, and the funding will be made to us. I asked Ms. Peronis for clarification on the mechanism of that, but I didn't get an answer clearly before this morning. But all our talks are around that money coming to the city paying the invoice to the Stadium Authority.
It is a study only, right?
This is a feasibility
There's a
study.
consortium of people involved.
That's right.
Some of us know of this as the MC3 initiative, if you will. Is that part of this or disbanded, or is it what is that entity now?
I believe the MC3 entity is no longer kind of extant as it was. But I think all of the key local stakeholders who are engaged in that process are now involved in working with Kristen Peronis, April Nyman, who are leading the effort now.
Okay, so the study is to talk about, what are we looking at? How much is it going to cost? What is this building going to look like? And all of that.
All of that. And then how would it look in terms of programming as well, so that it works within the current kind of arts performing venues and community that we have here. So they've been really successful, particularly with Maryland Hall. I understand that they've Kristen and April have been very good in engaging them, and they're all playing their part in this, and they're all kind of behind doing this feasibility study. So,
Questions?
I do, yes, thank you. Ms. Pettit, who's going to do the actual study?
I understand that the Visitor Centre and the Arts Council will oversee and manage the feasibility study, yes.
Okay, and you mentioned Maryland Hall. I go back a long way when the original drawings were to include Bates, Maryland Hall, Bates, the student, magnet school, Bates, or not Bates, but from Bates going on to Maryland Hall, which was a semi-professional, and then going to I guess it was called our Performing Arts Center at its original inception, being a more professional level theater, which had several different theaters within the building, a black box on top, and the likes. So are all of the entities involved in this discussion, meaning Bates and Maryland Hall and Mr. Parks and his original concept?
I'm not sure. I would need to check that for you. I know there were multiple people. I think we were up to like 20-something stakeholders who were engaged in the discussions early in the year. So my expectation would be that all the original parties would be engaged, but I'd have to confirm exactly who's been at the table on the discussions in the last couple of months since the Visitor Centre and the Arts Council took over leadership.
Well, I'm glad to hear there's so many stakeholders involved. I know how hard the other group worked to develop the project, and like you said, it's gone through several reiterations since its inception, but that's great. Well, thank you.
No worries.
Now that I understand, yes, I think it's a huge kudos to the mayor's office for coming in and sort of regrouping, because from my perspective, I was involved in the last effort. Mike Davis was the leader of MC3, and we initiated a meeting with the mayor's office because this was the last effort. Their lease was expiring at the storefront there at Park Place. They were using the property for events, and they just ran out of money, right? And so they came to the city for help as far as what are we going to do with this property? And then the city was instrumental in getting all of these stakeholders together. So thank you for that.
Thank you, yeah. And the mayor, obviously, has been very involved in trying to help bring this together and ensure that, we continue to go forward. So, yeah. Thank you.
No question.
Madam Chair, I'll make a recommendation that we give a favorable recommendation for SA 3023.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next is legislation that I'm co-sponsoring, with Alderman Gay. And this was something that Alderman Gay was, it's 019-23. Am I on? Oh, okay. I have to, like, for this, okay. I can sort of wing this. The only thing I'm not cognizant of is if there's been an updated fiscal impact note. What this is doing is we didn't know that the state had what we call enabling legislation to do this, because as you know, anything that's tax-related has to come through the state of Maryland. And so through our legislative aides research, Cynthia Reuter, she found that, hey, we can do this. The legislation is already there. And so then we have to do legislation to marry up with it. And what this does is the initiative is to have police to obviously have affordable housing in the city limits, but also this secondary effect would be, what's the word I'm looking for, an attraction to work for the city of Annapolis, because they would offer these, property tax if they were to live here. And it is limited to the fire and the police department. As you know, from a finance perspective, we have to be cognizant of the fact that, 67% of our revenue comes from property tax. So we have to be careful of, giving, not a bad word, but, be careful with that. But this is, I feel really strongly that this is a good perk, if you will. Any questions?
Madam Chair, I do have questions. This legislation came before Rules yesterday.
Okay.
And we had serious concerns, and were not able to take a position. One of the first questions raised was, why only this group of people? They are, not that all of our employees, and that's the end result, but not that all of our employees aren't worthy of this, but why this particular group? And if this is enabling legislation just because the state has, well, let me back up. Has the state granted this permission to other groups of employees? Ms. Dickinson, you look like you might have that answer.
I can add, Jody Dickinson, Finance Director. I can add a little bit. I don't know when the state passed the legislation, a couple years ago, authorizing governments to offer this public safety property tax credit to public safety employees. It authorizes governments to create a program for public safety related employees. Now it's up to the government to decide what they're defining as a public safety position. So different governments have handled it different ways. While I was at the county, we developed one. I do not recall what the definitions were, but this is the city's initial program to try to put that in place here.
So does that, it sounds very much like it's public safety.
Yes,
And we
yes,
have
it was targeted to public safety, and the state legislation focused on public safety.
Okay, and we have chosen to limit it to our 911 specialist. And I think there's, I don't know, a handful that would be eligible according to the staff report.
So I did
think it
not
was.
draft the legislation. It would, the law office had it, but I'm not sure it's just 911 specialists.
It says 8 employees, according to this fiscal impact note.
The 8 are the people that we know that would meet the definition and currently live in the city of Annapolis. So it's not the 8 communication officers, it's the people that fit the definition.
Yeah, I didn't suggest it was, but it does say 8 employees would qualify
Currently.
So the question is, and for the sponsor, why this particular group? And if the language at the state, if the code at the state says public safety employees, why we wouldn't include all public safety employees?
Can I
Sure, yeah.
Cynthia Reuter has done extensive research on this, and I was part of an email string between Alderwoman Pendle Charles. Can we have her speak to the state law?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that was it.
That was getting to you, Ms. Reuter.
Thank you. Cynthia Reuter, Policy and Legislative Analyst for the city. So these 2 pieces of legislation come from 2 different pieces of 2 sections of the state statutes. They define specifically what a 911 specialist is and what a public safety officer is. These laws do not allow the city to go beyond their definitions. The laws clearly state where the city can make changes, but it has to do with how much credit, when the credit could take effect, deadlines to apply for credit, that kind of thing. But the definitions are set by state law. And other cities do not, that I know of, that I found no cities that had a different definition. Our law is based on the law that Howard County passed, and it is very close to the Anne Arundel County law.
Very close to the Anne Arundel County. So my question is not about the terminology or the descriptors. My question is, does the state law allow a tax credit for all public safety, or is it only this select group?
It is only for this select group.
If
If a public safety officer lives in the city, they are not eligible for the credit?
No, it says public safety officer includes a firefighter, emergency medical technician, correctional officer, police officer, deputy sheriff employed full-time, volunteer firefighter, volunteer emergency medical technician, park police officer, police officer employed full-time by the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission who resides in Montgomery County. It's very specific. Not all these, a lot of these people who are defined that are allowed to have it do not apply to the city of Annapolis. The ones that are in the ordinance are the ones that apply to the city, that are allowed by the state.
So we're looking at, I think we're all looking at the bill summary, the legislative bill summary. And it does speak to fire department, firefighters, emergency medical technicians, and police officers. So our legislation, our enabling legislation, could give this authority, this tax benefit to our police officers and our firefighters.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I want to make clear. And this was a big question yesterday. Do we have the ability to include other public safety officers? And according to the law, we do.
We do not.
We do. That's what, we do not?
We do
We do
not.
not include firefighters and,
Oh, those are already in the ordinance. We cannot go beyond what the state said.
yeah,
right. But our ordinance speaks to 911.
I think the confusion is,
Our legislation speaks to 911 officers and what's the other group?
It's 911 specialists and public safety officer. Those are the two allowances.
So does public safety officers include firefighters and police officers?
Correct.
Okay, so if that's the case, then this legislation is inclusive, and is the financial and fiscal impact the same? Because the fiscal note says there are only 8 people eligible.
Yes, that includes public safety officers.
That includes police officers, that includes firefighters.
Yes, but I believe when they were working on the fiscal impact note, they looked at how many officers and firefighters already currently live in Annapolis.
That's correct.
That would be the current fiscal impact. The impact would be greater if more of them buy houses in the city.
Okay, I would like to see a breakdown, because I
So
have a feeling there are a lot more officers.
we took the employee listing.
Okay.
All positions that would be under this definition, there are 8 that are eligible. Now, more people could be living in the city and renting. And this is the property credit to the owner of the home. So there are only 8. We used the employee listing as our basis, and I wouldn't be inclined to provide the detail because I wouldn't want, we can't release the names. So
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not interested in revealing.
But there are only 8, and as she just said, we may end up encouraging people to buy homes in the city if they know they get this credit, although it's not a huge dollar amount per home, but that may increase the impact if more people decide to move inside the city limits. But for right now, we have 8 people that would qualify.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. There used to be a lot more.
Yeah.
And I guess we've lost them over time. The other question was there a consideration for other city employees? Why just public safety? Does the annotated code speak to, and maybe someplace else in the code, that speaks to giving employees of a municipality the same benefit?
It does not. The state allows various tax credits for various groups, but the city already includes them in the code, like senior citizens. I can't remember who else. But all those, apparently, it looked to me like the city has already taken advantage of those other
Okay.
opportunities.
All right, that was a big concern. One of the aldermen had several people reach out to him in reference to that, so. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those questions. I'm sorry I wasn't at that meeting where Alderman Gay. Yeah, so we had to limit it to the state laws, and we actually reiterate the definitions in our legislation. So, any questions? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to give a favorable recommendation to the council for
I'll second it.
1923.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, and thank you, Cynthia, for that research, and thank you, Senator Alforth, for, and just being a partner with us on this. Alrighty, next piece of legislation is, bear with me. The next piece of legislation is the leasing of, for Chesapeake Nautical Cruises. This is another lease for docking space at City Dock. I think we've seen the gentleman come into the meetings and advocate for this. It's 020-23. I'll put it out for discussion. Yes, Alderwoman O'Neill.
Oh.
Yeah.
My question, thank you very much, is the fiscal impact has the leases May 9th through the 27th, and that the city will receive $14,063.28. Because it is now June 7th, does that have an impact on the impact note?
So this legislation, this lease was written under the assumption that the city council would waive the rules and passed it on the night that it was introduced. The council did not do that. So it would change the fiscal impact, and there will need to be amendments to the lease. I'm not sure. That's on the legal side, and I can't really answer that question.
Okay, so this particular potential leasee is not operating from a city dock at this point in time?
There is, the yacht is picking passengers up and dropping them off. They have an agreement with the city to pick passengers up and drop them off. They are not allowed to dock at City Dock. This gives them docking space.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
I am looking for the harbor master's position on this. We don't have anything from her.
I can try to get somebody here, but I can't promise. We had a department head meeting this morning. Jackie's out there, and I guess Beth is not here today.
Jackie
because
is here, Jackie Gold.
She's not here. We had a department head meeting at Hudson Street, so I don't know if she's here yet, but I can check and see if they're back yet.
I would prefer to postpone this legislation, and I know it's timely because the dates are passing by, but I would really need to hear from the harbor master before I could give a favorable recommendation to this.
Yeah, may I add that, first help me find, I know I asked Ms. Guild that this is always, like the previous one, this is defined as a pilot. Can anyone help me find that language in the lease where it says that? I know she answered that at a council meeting, and I never, that's my one concern is,
It's right here.
what page is that?
Page 1 of the lease.
Okay.
The third or second whereas, the tenant desires to lease certain portion of the city as a pilot lease
Okay.
on the lease agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Alderwoman Finlayson. I feel strongly about this in that we have a valuable resource here, and it just appears that these, for lack of better words, kind of like first come, first serve. Speaking for my residents, my downtown residents, they're pretty anxious because these are sort of defined as party boats. And exactly as you say, Alderman Finlayson, I think I'd like to see, what is the priority here? Is there some sort of scheduling matrix that she can provide? So with that, I'll ask first, was that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that as a motion to postpone action.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So for Caleb, could you make sure she's here and speak to that? Yeah. All right. Next piece of legislation is, the Annapolis Classic Wooden Sailboat Race and Rendezvous Docking Fee Waiver. This is sponsored by Alderman Arnett, who is an avid sailor, and I know he supports this. I'll open it up for discussion or a motion.
Well, I would like to hear from Ms. Bellis again on, I see the map and I understand that we have different areas. I'm looking for which of the areas this is referring to. And I know it's only for 3 days.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it is September, so we have time.
I have a quick question. I had actually had a question to Watermark that I have not had an answer for yet. because it speaks in here about charter companies offering boats to go out and watch the races. And I know that the charter companies rely heavily on the city dock. So again, it would depend on how much of that docking area is being used. Like if it's all of the charter dock, if it's the, I like that they've given us this really nice color-coded map, but it doesn't say where they're looking to hold it unless it's in all of those spaces, which I haven't been able to find. So I was asking for.
And how they're gonna navigate that is your concern too. I mean, it's gonna be pretty crowded.
Right.
I'm looking at the last whereas on page 1, and it asks for the Bertus Dock Basin.
Okay.
So if you look at the map, which is the attached, it's the orange long dock.
And there was a staff report prepared by Beth Bellis talking about the impact of the operations. It's turning away a few more recreation boats. It's requiring the need for an additional dock assistant. And
Have we already given them permission to dock, and this is just to waive the fee for docking?
I don't know if we do it separately like that.
Pardon me?
I don't know if we do it separately like that. I mean, why would we give permission?
I
Sure,
believe that
would.
they've already received permission. The
'Cause they
way
did
this
it
is worded
last year,
is
yeah.
already received permission, and they're asking for the
Now
waiver
for
of
the
it.
fee waiver.
So how did we find out? Obviously, if they're asking for a fee waiver, they've already been granted permission, so it's, and again, Ms. Bellis could probably, or Mr. Alderman Arnett could probably answer that question. Can you check to see if we've had legislation that speaks to giving permission for this? I do recall something, but
That would just give them permission to dock.
that's already been done, that's what we're saying. This is
we think-
waiving the
Right.
$3,000 fee for that.
But again, I think it's important that Beth Bella speaks to this too.
Ms. Dickinson is trying to,
Oh, Director Dickinson?
Yeah, I was trying to find our fiscal note. I think I opened it up here. We have a forfeited fee revenue of $3,088 if we waive these fees, but I see in Ms. Bellis's
Staff report.
staff report that they have to put an extra staff person on that day because having this boat in that space means they'll have to add somebody else to assist with other boats that are coming in. I don't know what rafting is, but we did not include that in fiscal impact, so there will be some extra staff costs because of it.
so is there any indication in your notes when we gave that permission and, yeah,
No, I think it would be more appropriate for Harbor Master to be answering the questions.
thank you. So, Madam Chair, I'd move that we postpone, since this is September, we do have a little bit of time,
That's correct, yeah.
and ask Ms. Bellis to come before us and provide additional information.
Second.
Let me just add too that Kaylin, just if you could tell her that we want her to speak to the overall managing of the dock, you know. Thank you so much.
For vote?
It was all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. R-32-23 is the Annapolis All-Star Youth Sports Program fee waiver, and this is waiving fees for the Annapolis All-Stars Youth Organization for the fields, and we do have someone to speak to it today. If you could come forward and introduce yourself.
Good morning, Lakeisha Simmons, Recreation and Parks.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Did you want to speak to your understanding of what will be waived, or
The
your
fee.
involvement in this legislation?
Yes, so it will be the fees for the Annapolis All-Stars to use the Bates Athletic Complex, as well as possibly the Collison Athletic Complex located at Truxton Park.
So 3 fields?
2 fields,
2 fields, I'm sorry.
2
what was the-
locations. The Bates Athletic Complex, which is
Correct.
off of Spa Road.
Correct.
And the Collison Field, which is at Truxton Park.
Okay. Questions?
I want to ask how we got to this, but I think there's going to be a larger discussion about the fees that are being charged, because I think we were all pretty shocked at the $13,000 ticket for this. I can speak as well as Ms. Simmons, I'm sure, about the Annapolis All-Stars and their work in the Annapolis community. They have been a part of the Annapolis community for years. They ended their program and they've begun it again. And it reaches young people all over the city. It is our only organized sporting program in the city. And they have every sport. They have football, basketball, baseball, cheerleading. They do it all. They're a nonprofit group. And so I would totally support the mayor's recommendation.
I have a question.
Yes, Alderwoman O'Neill.
I guess my question revolves around understanding that the 13,008 Director Johnson had given me a breakdown when I had requested it, and it's basically the number of times that the fields are being used. If this were to be 100% waived, we do have costs that are not going to be covered. Can you speak to those? What, for instance, staffing, maintenance, line markings, things like that? Do you?
And duration.
So, and I think part of the information that Director Johnson had given you, upon further discussion with the All-Stars, some of those dates they would not need, so that would reduce the amount of the waiver as well, because they don't need as many dates as they had listed previously. So that will change. The cost associated with it would be the field lining, and the staff going out and cutting the grass would be the only, because we don't put any monitors out there to monitor when the organizations are there. So it would be the one-time field lining. We do only line once, so that is a one-time fee that each organization is charged, and then they're charged with maintaining the lines after that.
All right, and what is that? Was it like $50 or?
The fee lining is $50 per occurrence.
My hope would be that we would be able to retain the $50 and then the cost of the upkeep. I mean, it's from July until November. So that is, even if it was every other week, lawn mowing, it's still a fee, a cost to us. And I think that we shouldn't go, I question it being the only organized sports in the city, because there are soccer teams and lacrosse teams that are also organized sports in the city that utilize fields that are charged. So I would just make sure that we're covering our cost.
Yeah, I'm not clear on what this fee waiver includes. If it doesn't, I think I'm re-asking the same question. Because of the duration, are you confident that this, why don't you tell us what the scope of work is for this duration that is in this fee waiver? what exactly are you waiving?
The fee waiver will cover everything that's on the permit. But again, they are, the 13,000 that you have.
Yes.
That includes dates that they will not need. And so I don't know if we want to wait and get all of the dates, because some of the dates that they have listed on the current permit that I believe you have, they won't need. And so that would reduce the amount of the permit and the fee that would be waived.
And what is the fee now in the budget?
It's $80 per 4-hour increment per field.
And does that marry up to this?
Yes.
I think the concern, if I'm understanding you, Alderman O'Neill, is precedence it sets? Or
Is what? I'm sorry, I'm not here.
the
Precedence?
it sets?
The precedence it sets.
I mean, in other words, I think,
I understand.
I'm just trying
Okay,
to
yeah.
translate her question.
We do have, and when I mentioned the only Annapolis program that has 6 different sports, not a single sport, But anyway, may I ask Ms. Simmons, how often do we cut that grass on those fields anyway? Not how often, do we regularly?
Yes, we do regularly maintain the fields and cut the
Okay.
grass there.
So we're not cutting the grass just for the sporting events, but we're maintaining, and that, I believe, is part of our agreement with the Board of Education who
Yes.
owns the property. So it's not an extra benefit that we're getting by cutting the grass for the team. We're going to cut the grass anyway. We're not going to line anyway, unless there's a team out there, but we're going to cut the grass.
That's correct. And it is on the park schedule to do that.
There's one, maybe, I don't know this for a fact, but if they don't get the fee waiver, they probably would not be able to, is that our understanding?
That's my understanding.
And that is a consideration. Well, I mean,
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we give a favorable recommendation to R 3223.
do I have a second? Okay.
I'm not going to vote for that at this time, so if you want to give this a second, I would vote no. I would like to see the alterations in how much it forgoes and actual costs.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that so we can hear it down here?
I would like to see how it changes when we find out exactly how many days they're using it. Because again, the way it was presented was that it was, and I'm trying to find the data, I believe it was 147 days originally, which takes out of use for any other team to use that we would be charging. So it does cost us. There are other teams that,
I think we need to then look at exactly what the scheduling looks like for the other teams.
and the scheduling.
There is conflicts, and I think anyway, well then, I don't have a motion. I would move that we postpone action on R 3223.
I would second that.
Let's be clear on what we're asking for, which is a schedule of the field use, perhaps from July
Well,
to
that's
November.
not what my motion is. My motion is to postpone action so that Ms. Simmons and Ms. Johnson can determine the actual cost that would be incurred by the All-Stars.
Yes, that's what I would say.
You second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor of that postponement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are you okay? Do you understand what we're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming up. Chief Muguez is here. Hi. No, just observing? Oh, thank you so much for being here. Okay, so what we have next on the agenda is an update from the Finance Department. I think we know what you've been doing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know what I've been up to. The budget, of course, that's consumed, at least for three of us, has consumed all of our time for the last couple weeks. And the fourth quarter transfer request that we're preparing for the next meeting, identifying any departments that will be short on their budget and will need additional funds added. We try to be very careful to make each department look within its own department to see if it has funds available elsewhere, if they're going over on one item or another. And so we're going through that exercise now, and we'll come to you with an ask to transfer monies between departments or from contingency for the rest of it.
And that will close out fiscal year?
Yes, that should hopefully get us through the fiscal year, because what we don't know is if there are things out there that are being purchased, say, by P cards that that are large dollar amounts that we wouldn't know about. Sometimes we get surprised. But other than the unknown, yes, that should get us to the end of the fiscal year. So that's what's been consuming the budget team's time. We're also heading for a closeout of the year. I've been spending a lot of time communicating with departments on things we need them to do to get the books ready to close, the system ready to take that break, and things we need to be doing, timing, purchase order entry, purchase order cancellations, those types of things. It's a big endeavor during June and July to work with the departments to get everything processed for this fiscal year. So that's starting, as well as the auditors are going to come out and do their planning process for the audit for FY23. So that's going on as well. So it's a busy time of year for us.
So are you finding in your tenure that the projections or estimates of the departments are getting better?
We do the projections, and then we talk to the departments about them.
Yeah.
And some departments will come to us and say, we think we're gonna be over here, can we move money? So it's kind of a combined effort. And yes, I do believe the estimates on the expense side is getting better. We're better at identifying what they're going to do on salaries, et cetera. We are better able to recognize what's missing that hasn't been recorded in the books yet that we need to take into account. And that, coupled with the departments telling us they think they're going to go over, is how we get to those. So I would say yes, we're getting better.
Thank you. Any questions?
It's the revenues that are the things that are hard to predict, the money coming in.
I would just like to say thank you. I missed being able to offer you a toast.
Yeah. I knew you
But
guys
for
would be here.
shepherding us through the process. And it was a long day, but it wasn't as arduous as it could have been, so.
And we've had much worse years.
Yes, we have,
It's
so.
much better this year, I have to
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
So thank you to you and your entire staff. Madam Chair, I will move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.